This is Rattling the Cage with Tony Reed.
Brought to you by Grappito. Grip like a hawk. Grappito.com.
It's time.
Hey, welcome to Rattling the Cage with Tony Reed. As always, we're in the 8 days a week and Stone State Entertainment Studios, joined in studio by John Vivakis, the one, the only. What's going on, man?
I'm just happy that I rate sitting by the fireplace because it is, negative 38 degrees outside.
It is. It is. It was. It honestly, it was a struggle to get back out of the house this evening to come out. I was contemplating whether we really wanted to venture back out to come out here tonight.
Yeah.
It's a tad chilly, tad bit nipply out tonight, but we're here for you guys. We're here. And so is Eddie Alvarez. He's a part of the show this week. Don't miss my can't miss conversation with former Bellator and former UFC Lightweight champ and current one championship star Eddie Alvarez. We discuss his free agency, the recruitment and signing with one, and his desire to become a champ in a third major MMA promotion. That and so much more. That's not even doing the interview. That's doing it a disservice. We'll hear it here in a minute. It's almost a half an hour of just legendary content with one of the legendary fighters in the game. We're going to talk about UFC Brooklyn. We're going to recap Bellator 214 as well. Talk about the new UFC belts that were unveiled. Talk about some night fights later in the show. But let's hear a little bit from our sponsor, Grappito. Check out the Grappito at Grappito.com.
Grip like a hawk with Grappito. Grappito Trainer was invented by a biomedical engineer that has years of strength training and experience in martial arts. Grappito in the sand application is mainly a concentric exercise and is great for conditioning the hands, forearms, and the arm musculature as a whole. This helps athletes with having strong, long-lasting grip that does not easily fatigue during competition. Check out the videos and more at Grappito.com. That's Grappito.com.
Hey, we're back. Like we said before the break, we're going to recap the two most recent events. UFC Brooklyn, of course, Saturday, January 19th on the ESPN Plus app. I actually downloaded the app, John, just for the event, and I canceled promptly before my 7-day free trial period expired. So
you're that guy.
I'm usually not, but absolutely this time around I was. And not that they didn't have great content. It looked amazing, but I just don't want it. I'm not going to be on it that much. So I did watch the event actually on my phone the entire evening, much to my wife's chagrin, who was trying to watch it as well. But it was great. The app went smoothly. The fights themselves, Henry Cejudo just put a stop to TJ Dillashaw mere seconds, 32 seconds into round one by TKO KO. As we all know by this point, there's been a lot of discussion whether it was an early stoppage or not. Personally, I can see it from both sides. But if I'm drawing a line in the sand, I think it was a tad bit premature, but it wasn't a bad stoppage. And I say that because TJ was taking some hellacious shots. You could see his head getting rocked back. He was in a bad way. Now he did go for the single, but at the same time, I think he would have just taken more damage. Now, could the ref have given him a few seconds to do that to see if he did fully recover, but recover enough to be in the fight? Yeah, it was a touch early, but I don't think it was a horrible stoppage. We're hearing some crazy stuff like it was just this horrible stoppage. TJ got dropped and he was getting beat on, and I think it was a tad early, but not bad, John. What were your thoughts on the stoppage?
Well, a couple things. Again, I've heard it from all different angles, and I agree that it was a little bit premature just because of the magnitude of the fight and the fighters. And I think Brendan Schaub said it the best. I think of all the people that heard it, that I heard talk about it, was he just said, you know what, at an event of this magnitude for two belts, just, maybe you let it go. You let the guy try to recover a little bit more because it was on the fence. It was kind of on the line. You and I had the privilege of being at your house this weekend for a little get together, and one of our associates, who is also a professional combat sports athlete, he said it was completely justified. Yeah. He was under the impression, again, from his trained eye that, TJ was just going to take a bunch more punishment. And if they wouldn't have stopped it then, it wasn't going much longer. So
that's pretty much where I stood.
So long story short, Henry Cejudo put it on him and deserves to be, the champ.
He does. And we might see that happen here. That was what he was calling for after the fight. He wants to go fight it. This is flyweight. We're hearing this might be, the RIP to the flyweight division, and that might have stirred rumors even more with the champ wanting to go up a weight class to fight TJ for his strap.
And I enjoyed his post-fight interview when he actually said, I'm doing this for the flyweight division. Hopefully I prove that this division is viable.
Yeah.
And
let me leave it and go up.
Yeah, let me leave. Right. Hey, right now that I'm on cloud 9 and everyone's going to be talking about me, please keep the division. But if you want to pay me a bunch of money to go up, screw these other guys.
Yeah, you're on your own, flies. But so that was the main event, and truly, in my opinion, clearly there was a bit of a letdown. The fight that was built up to that degree ended in 32 seconds, clearly. But I'm also a fan of action and of definitive stoppages. In my opinion, that was action. Yeah, it was only 32 seconds, but I feel like Cejudo clearly was the winner of that fight, whether it be at 32 seconds or if it would have went 38 or 42, and I think we just saw a similar result. Co-main event of the evening. Oh boy. Greg Hardy and Alan Crowder. Who would have ever thought you'd hear Alan Crowder's name in the co-main event of any UFC event? Well, in walks Greg Hardy. Big name. A lot of controversy surrounding him for good reason. There was a lot of controversy that he was involved in. And of course, the fight itself played out that way. Controversial ending with Hardy kneeing a downed Crowder who could not continue. So Alan Crowder won by disqualification around 2.5 minutes into the round. I don't know what to think. I mean,
it was not a high-level fight.
Definitely not.
And again, I'm not taking...
co-main event worthy either, right. in the UFC event.
And I'm not taking anything away from Alan Crowder. He, seasoned. He's got some fights under his belt.
Yeah. He's 10-3, I think. Won no contest.
He has done some stuff. I don't think he's a terrible fighter, but.
He's not a co-main event fighter in the UFC event in this day and age. That's all.
We knew what we were watching.
Neither is Greg Hardy.
Right. But watching those two, we knew what we were watching.
Yeah.
They masqueraded it as a co-main event. That was a fight that should be taking place, at regionally, right?
Or
King of the Cage,
level.
CFFC.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to them. But at the same time, those guys were not UFC main card ready. At worst, that was a prelim fight, before the crowd gets there kind of thing. Because Greg Hardy did not deserve to be there for any other reason other than dollar figures. And, but again, and this is going to be funny coming from me because I'm the first guy to defend the UFC putting CM Punk on a card. But the one thing that you can say, the difference between these two is they almost masqueraded and trotted Greg Hardy out like he deserved to be there.
Yeah.
At least with CM Punk, it was like, hey, this is an experiment. This is a freak show.
Yeah.
Greg Hardy, it was like, this guy's a legitimate mixed martial artist.
Yeah.
He is not. He won a couple low-level fights. He beat a couple cans, and he had no business being there, and he proved it not only by what he did before the knee, but the lack of awareness and the rookie mistake that he did that he went through. So again, we'll talk about this when we compare the two events, the Bellator event and this event, how, in my opinion, Bellator brings on celebrity fighters in a much better fashion than the UFC does. I'm disappointed on a lot of fronts, and we can talk about the social ramifications of having Greg Hardy on, but not a fan.
Yeah, and the fight that could have easily been the co-main event is the fight that you're alluding to between Paige Van Zandt and Rachel Ostovich. That was a good one. I mean, also Gregor Gillespie, Yancy Medeiros, that could have easily been the co-main, at least with the card as it's laid out. That would be a co-main. Someone who's clearly co-main or main event worthy, Gregor Gillespie. just that wrestling background, man. He gets a hold of you, he just smothers you. He wears you down. He's, gas pedal to the metal the entire fight. Just has that smothering style where he's just gonna break his opponent at some point or wear them to the point of exhaustion where he's gonna just take over the fight. 13-0 now. He got the TKO round 2, tail end of round 2. I believe there's like a second or two left in the round, but he looks like a legit contender. So maybe once he gets back from his fishing trip, they'll get something lined up. They joke a lot about he's like a really, really serious fisherman. So I don't know. I think Gillespie is right there in line.
Exactly.
In the lightweight division.
Right. And high level.
An already stacked lightweight division. He's as worthy as anyone at this moment.
And high level wrestlers, they have that advantage that they always have. So that I did enjoy that. And it was an interesting fight. I don't know. The cold has gotten my tongue going
got
sideways.
Some frostbite there, John.
I don't know what it is there. Okay. I apologize.
I think I just lost a toe as we were sitting here.
The three of you that are listening, I apologize for whatever that was. And that fight, like some of the other ones, it was an interesting, other than some of the early stoppages, the guys that won early and Donald Cerrone, there was a lot of guys that won, and girls that won fights that were actually in trouble at certain points. So Yancy, Medeiros put a couple good combinations together on Gillespie. I loved the Paige Van Zandt Ostrovich fight. I loved that fight because that was a very gritty, tough fight because Rachel was putting it on her early.
She was.
And I loved, and you don't see this very often, especially from a female fighter. She threw the big overhand right, and the momentum from connecting on that big punch, she would hit a body lock and a trip. So it was literally as Paige's head is rocking back, she's being body locked and tripped, which was a great technique, and I loved it because again, you don't see that a lot, especially from female fighters. It's the old Dan Henderson overhand right into the takedown, and it was
H-bomb.
It was very technical, very cool. But they just Paige weathered it and showed she had a few more tricks in her arsenal. So that was good. A few other ones were good. There was a few other lower ones at the end.
It's great to see Glover back on the winning track.
Roberson did some good things.
Yeah, absolutely.
He rocked Glover. He did some good things. Dennis Bermudez was in some trouble. A bunch of guys were. There was a bunch of good fights. That I really enjoyed. I think from top to bottom, with the exception of the two fights at the top of the card. The rest of the show was very enjoyable.
Yeah, and you mentioned Bermudez there. He's obviously a friend of the show, and we have ties to Dennis, and Dennis has ties to the area. So for a guy like, I know you had mentioned numerous times, the first time you saw him walk in the gym at Tim's to what he became is just a testament to his skill set, to his determination, his attitude, his work ethic. And he had a hell of a career. No, he was not a champion, but he had one hell of a career and a ton of fights in the UFC. Highlight reel, this stacks up with anyone. Super exciting guy. And we just wish Dennis obviously all the best. And I'm sure we'll reach out to him and get him on the show at some point soon. But sad to see a guy go, but great to see him go on his terms. And he's still a young guy with a super bright future ahead of him, whatever he decides to do. So just cheers to Dennis on one hell of a career.
Yeah, a guy that again I have had the privilege of being in the cage with and training with. That is a good story. I remember the day that Dennis Bermudez walked into the gym, had just started training, and it was a really good Division I wrestler, so he could hang with everybody wrestling.
Yeah.
But I remember, during the kickboxing period of the training session, Dennis Bermudez got beat up by everyone in the gym.
When we have him on, we'll ask him. I'm sure you would remember.
Now, I'm not saying beat up to the point that he shouldn't have been in there. You knew, he was a tough kid. He had some athleticism, but you knew that he was still starting out.
Yeah.
There was there were some guys that were in there that, had some good high level skill sets. And a few that didn't, but they just had that gym seasoning, and he didn't have that yet.
Yeah.
And then come to find out, 3-4 months from there, I watch him on The Ultimate Fighter, and it was a different guy.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see these guys that can kind of pick it up like a sponge.
Yeah.
And I think Dennis was that guy because, again, I trained with him probably 4 months, 3-4 months before The Ultimate Fighter, and he was the guy on the show who had really, put his nose to the grindstone and really worked hard, was not the same guy that I got to train with. And that's just a testament again to him. And guys, and you see that all the time. You see a guy, he goes to a new gym, or he gets a couple fights under his belt, or he gets a new coach, or whatever he does, and that light bulb just clicks, and you see them grow and take off. And I think Dennis getting into the Ultimate Fighter house really was that kickoff for him to become, a top level contender, and get some big quality wins under his belt.
He was, and he was, like I said, he was never a champ, but he was a contender. He's a top 10 guy, and like I said, from what he started at to what he became at his height it's just a testament to Dennis himself. So again, UFC Brooklyn, fun card, fun free card on my phone. I'll take it. It was fun. But moving on to the Bellator 214 recap. Ryan Bader, man, champ.
I am not, me. I am not. I've never been a Bader guy. At least during his UFC run, I thought there was a lot of undue hype around Bader, and
it seemed like he performed really well, but against true top tier competition, the knock was he never quite got it done.
Exactly, and I think now, again, talking about Bermudez, that light bulb I think has clicked with Bader. And I am a believer now. I mean, you can't rattle off the string of wins that he just had and not be impressed. And you can't, that to me cements him as one of the, 5 best fighters in the world, maybe.
He's definitely one of the all-time Bellator greats at this point, what he's accomplished,
But I'm just saying overall, in the world right now, you can't say Bader's not one of the 5 best fighters in the world right now.
In all weight classes, the world, do you think he's there?
I mean, why wouldn't he be? Because what other? Okay, you have DC. Is there another heavyweight that would be that you would rank ahead of him? Was he the number?
Probably still Stipe, honestly.
Stipe, okay. But having a belt kind of cancels that out, right? So you would say that a champion is leapfrogs a non-champion?
Potentially.
Potentially? Okay.
Potentially.
Okay. And again, I don't know, but I mean,
could John Jones? Depending on what you think of his,
he's a champion.
Extracurriculars, he would be ahead of Ryan, I would imagine.
Right. I mean, and so
DJ, Max Holloway. Where do you put Connor? Where do you put? Obviously the list goes on and on and on. You go forever.
I think he may. I mean, I'm saying he's 4 or 5, maybe. Because you got Khabib, you got some other guys, but I put Bader ahead of a couple of the UFC champions.
Yeah.
So again, it's a debate we could have all day.
You can put him wherever you want, man.
Right. But I mean, is he now? Here's my question for you. If I know we're getting off topic though, but would Bader be, if we're ranking fighters in the world, would Bader be the highest ranked Bellator fighter?
Yeah, I believe so at this point.
Yeah, I don't think Rory goes ahead of him. I don't think I don't think anybody else does. So so if you're counting Bellator, and I know some people in the know, some of the media and some of the podcasts have said that Bellator is slowly, they're not the UFC, but they're a lot closer than they used to be.
Oh, we talked about that for years as they were growing from grassroots.
I mean, isn't it fair to say that the best, the quote unquote best champion in Bellator should be one of the top 5 best fighters in the world? So
I just think he wouldn't be a champ in the UFC at that weight class. That's my only thing. So that kind of maybe steps him back a few, just in my opinion.
And that may be true
for what that's worth. Not much, Johnny. So the rest of the card, that was, again, another main event that ended in about a half a minute.
I think, what was my text to you? Mine was just one punch with a bunch of question marks.
The co-main event, which is one hell of a co-main event, Henry Corrales defeated Aaron Pico via knockout. Again, first round, a little over a minute into the first round. That was, I said to you before the event that night, that was the fight I was looking forward to most. It didn't last long, but it was a hell of a minute and 7 seconds. So Pico, he was landing early. He dropped Corrales, and Corrales, to his credit, jumped right back up in there. Took advantage of a less than seasoned Pico. I know you talked about a guy maybe needing a little more gym seasoning. He doesn't, now clearly taking nothing away from Aaron Pico, but a veteran in Corrales exposed some holes in Pico's game, landed that vicious, well, he started with the uppercuts and he saw the opening, then he hit him with the hook, and you saw Pico, it was a pretty vicious knockout. And I asked Corrales after the fact, I said, man, and he seems so calm. Like he's a pretty passionate guy, and he seems so calm. And I said, when you took that shot and you hit the ground, where were you mentally? What was going through your mind? He's like, as soon as my ass hit that canvas, I was good. I was back. He recovered that quickly. And he said the same thing. I saw those openings, and I exposed them, and it is what it is. And I said, we were just going back and forth. And I said, after the fight, usually so passionate. And he was like he was walking up aisle 4 in the grocery store. And he was just kind of, everyone else around was going buck wild. And I said, well, what was with like the lack of emotion? He's like, I was just taking it all in. So again, another veteran of the game whose career it started out, he had a huge undefeated streak, came to Bellator, went through like the murderer's row right out of the gate. He took a short fight with Pitbull. He fought former champs, and he dropped 3 in a row in Bellator, but now he's on like a 5-fight winning streak now, 4 or 5. And he's right back in the title hunt. He's with the MMA lab. He's training with Ben Henderson and Crouch and the great people there. And he said that's been everything. That's been the change. So it's great to see a guy like that come along and be in the title hunt again. So
yeah, and Aaron Pico, please don't think
he's 22
right,
and he has maybe the brightest future in the sport. So we're not taking nothing away from Aaron Pico,
and we're not writing him off. I am not writing him off. I was thinking about this, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and it's one of those things where I think Aaron Pico's mental game has got to catch up with his physical game, because again, here's a guy who his entire life has been the bubble of high level combat and high level competition. Got pulled out of school, traveled around the world. And I think while he lived a life that a lot of people, have not lived, he didn't live a lot of life, if it makes sense. I think Aaron Pico's got some growing up to do as a human being. And I think once he kind of grows and matures and gets a little bit of worldliness about him, I think he's going to be very dangerous. I think, and you could see it in there, like his brain is so focused on technique, combat. I think sometimes you just got to have some feel and some intuition, and that comes with not just experience as a fighter. It comes as experience as a human being. I'm going to liken it to, maybe not the same kind of skill set, but I'm going to liken it to Robbie Lawler. I think Robbie Lawler might be the comparison we're seeing for Aaron Pico, not skill wise, but I think Pico's just like Robbie Lawler, was that young phenom beating people up and then hit the skids a little bit, grew up, and then became that champion that we all knew he would be. I think that's going to happen to Pico here. I think he's gonna get some losses under his belt. He's going to win some. He's going to lose some. He's going to grow up. He's going to become a man. And I think in 4 or 5 years, we're going to be going, all right, that's the guy. Yeah. That's the guy we knew was in there.
And that's the thing about MMA. It's such a unforgiving bitch. It really is. I mean, one false move and, your lights are out, your night's over, months and months of training and dedication and sacrifice are out the window. We know that. It's the most unforgiving sport out there. And at 21, 22 years old, like I said, still has maybe the brightest future in the sport. Hopefully he heals, if there's, concussive issues, things of that nature. Heal, take your time, come back. You have all the time in the world. He's still going to be great. Something that that you kind of touched on it, but to kind of piggyback on that, like, he grew up wrestling from infancy, basically. Now, yes, he also boxed. He's a Golden Glove boxer, trains with Freddie Roach, clearly incredibly high level. But in a fight where he drops a guy, instead of just going to your bread and butter, going to the wrestling, ground and pound him out and stop him, like you say, he's a little too technical, a little too maybe punch happy, a little too, I don't know. He could have ended the fight when he dropped Krause.
Here's all you need to know. When Freddie Roach, who's a boxer, who obviously we know, great, one of the best boxing coaches around, says probably should have wrestled a little more.
Yeah.
You know what should have happened. All his coaches said, he is falling in love with his hands a little too much. And he needs to understand that the game, there's a lot more to the game. And I think, and I want to say it was Josh Thompson that said before the fight,
who does a really good, I like him, and I like him on the mic. He does a good job.
Josh Thompson. I think he said, the hole in Aaron Pico's game right now is not being able to put things together.
He did, yes, absolutely.
He's either just, he's either going to box you or he's going to wrestle you.
Absolutely.
He's not able to, like I mentioned, Ostervik in the fight with Paige Van Zandt, being able to put that big overhand right into the takedown.
Yeah.
I don't see Pico doing that right now. So, he's either, the takedown is either coming as it's a takedown. There's no setup. There's no nothing. He's hitting you with a blast double. He's doing something like that, or he's just going to box with you.
Yeah.
So I think, and that's another thing, like he has done such high level stuff, but they're individualized. And I don't think his MMA game, his boxing game, world class. His wrestling game, world class. His MMA game, still taking some work. So I think that's going to be the growing up and understanding, how to put things together.
Yeah. And I actually talked to Aaron before the fight, and we talked a lot of boxing. I'll be honest. We talked a lot of boxing and a lot of Freddie Roach. And, one of the stories we were talking about was Freddie, someone asked Freddie Roach years and years ago, you've done everything, you've trained everyone, you've coached everyone. Why do you come to the gym every day? And Freddie said he comes to the gym every day because you never know when that next superstar is going to walk through the door. And I asked Aaron, I'm like, do you feel like you're that next superstar for Freddie? And he said that's what he hopes to be. He wants to box. He's going to take pro boxing fights under Freddie's tutelage, and he talked a lot about that. And I know he said even as a young kid, he was wrestling a lot and boxing a lot, and he said, told his parents, someday I'm going to be, that guy for Freddie Roach. I want him to train me, to coach me. I want to be like the star people of Freddie Roach. So I think there's a lot of weight being put into that side of things for him right now. And that's all. That's great. That's great. But like you said, it's about meshing that and kind of making those two things, which he's incredibly great at, meshing them together and making them work against a worthy opponent in competition. And that's, again, he's 22, so he has all the time in the world to make that happen. I think he will. I think he'll be all right. The kid's going to be all right.
Can we talk about the most impressive and important thing about the Bellator card, please?
Oh God, are we going to the Jack Hager, Jack Swagger, J.W. Kaiser?
You know what?
That's his name, right? J.W. Kaiser.
J.W. Kaiser.
Okay.
And you know what? Maybe one of my new favorite guys.
J.W. Kaiser.
J.W. Kaiser. Again.
Oh God.
Here's the cool part about what happened. You can say whatever you want about whether or not J.W. Kaiser.
Is he an author too, or what? What's the deal?
Who knows?
What's the deal?
J.W. Kaiser. I think you said it was not only fighting Jake Hager, but he was fighting diabetes at the same time.
Yes.
JW, not in great shape, not a physical specimen.
Definitely, no one ever accused him of that.
Looked like he should be loading trucks down at the dock somewhere.
He should work at the Walmart warehouse. Let's just be honest.
He was a Walmart warehouse kind of guy.
Or the Wise Markets warehouse. Shout out Wise Markets. We need to sponsor Wise Markets.
Right. 0-1 was what? 0-1, I think, or 1-0. He had one professional fight.
It'd be like, we'd take it back to pro wrestling.
However,
it doesn't matter.
However, claimed to have over 50 fights in his career.
Is it the classic 300-0 in street fights deal?
But nothing mattered. You know what? But the reason I'm very happy about this was nobody I have ever seen was happier to be in that Bellator cage than J.W. Kaiser. I mean, that guy ran around the cage like a little kid. Like if I let my son run in the cage, it would look exactly like J.W. Kaiser. You know, minus the beard.
I think the fight would have gone
right. Minus the beer belly and tattoos, it would have looked exactly like my son. So, you know, he looked like a roadie from Motley Crue. You know, somehow got a fight in Bellator.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, but again, and people will argue with me. I think that was the right fight. Maybe not J.W. Kaiser, but somebody on that level, that was the right fight for Jake Hager to take.
Yeah.
You know, because again, Bellator, you know, treated him like a big deal, but they didn't treat him like a seasoned main event fighter. That's the difference between what they did with Greg Hardy.
Let's just say in matchmaking this fight, they set him up for success.
Right, which you should do.
Yeah, I agree.
You should do. I mean, as someone who has booked fights for other fighters, you know, I'm like, okay, what is the best avenue for my fighter to succeed? You know, I've told the story of you know, one of our buddy Adam Wren as a first fight amateur getting offered a fight with Tyron Woodley.
Yeah,
and all of us going, no,
that's right.
No, you know, because that's a terrible first fight for your career, right?
Yeah, it is.
You know, so no matter who you are, you
then
don't.
Why
do
did you
that.
book him for Cain Velasquez then? Let him take that one.
I should have.
Yeah,
that would be amazing. But again,
you would.
Now I would. Heck yeah, I would. You know, but that's what I'm saying. Like they needed to do that. They needed to get him some exposure. Get his feet wet in the cage, you know, book him like a big deal. They used the pro wrestling opening, R-Truth rapping for him, coming out to the cage. I mean, it was a big deal. It was a show, but it was early on the card. It wasn't the reason you were tuning in. It was like an icing on the cake kind of thing. The UFC put Greg Hardy as a reason for you to watch.
They put him as a co-main event with a straight face, which is kind of what we have issue with.
Right, and it was a terrible idea, and it blew up in their face.
Yeah.
This Bellator did it exactly right. This is what they do. They did it with Bobby Lashley. They do it with him. You know, I think CM Punk signs with Bellator. I'm not saying he wins fights, but I don't think we're saying the same kinds of things about him as we are with him showing up in the UFC. So again, I loved it. I personally think Jake Hager has a place in MMA. Yeah. I think he's a big athletic guy. You know, was recruited not only as a football player but a wrestler at Oklahoma. You know, 2 high-level programs
legit,
at both.
100%, yeah.
You know, set the record at Oklahoma for most pins in the season, like 30-some pins in the season at heavyweight. You know, he's been in front of big crowds before. He's charismatic, and I don't think that once he gets a couple fights under his belt, he's been in front of those crowds. I think you've got something there. I'm not saying he's a world champion, but I think he's a guy that could be viable in the heavyweight division. You know, it's something that I think they're doing it right. I think, you know, if they throw him in there with a top contender right off the bat, I don't think he hangs. You know, we know the fight was a setup. We do. We know it was a schmaz. We know it was set up that way. But again, it was entertaining, and it accomplished the goal.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
the MMA purist like you.
Oh, John, I'm not that
guy.
pure.
You are. You're the aging MMA hipster. That's what you are. So
I do not have a fedora. I do not drink coffee. I don't sit at Starbucks on my laptop or anything like that.
You are the MMA hipster. You know, how many guys have you said, I remember that guy before he was famous?
Oh God, I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably a number.
Yeah, you're that guy. You
Larger
long
number.
you
I don't
long for the
say it,
old
but-
you long for the old days of one glove. The days of nut punches.
How do you not love Art Jimerson?
Right, you are that guy. You know,
How do you not love Joe San? He's done some things.
Okay,
Maybe you don't love
we
Joe
don't
San.
love Joe San.
He's done some shit.
You know, yeah, that's that's a different story. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, he did throw a shoe once.
Yeah.
But unfortunately,
He did do that.
he also murdered his cellmate, and we can't talk about that.
Not great.
Yeah.
Not great
So I
stuff.
guess I think we've gone off the rails.
We have.
Should we go talk to Eddie Alvarez?
No, man.
No?
We're talking new UFC belt unveiled.
Oh yeah, that's something
Before we cut the
that
commercial,
Eddie
let's-
Alvarez is not going to get anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. That's true.
He's working on his own belt.
He is. So let's do that. Let's cut the commercial. Come back with the interview with Eddie Alvarez. It's worth sticking around for. Give it a listen. Get some insight from Eddie himself before his one debut and get some ear magic.
Grip like a hawk with Grappito. Grappito Trainer was invented by a biomedical engineer that has years of strength training and experience in martial arts. Grappito in the sand application is mainly a concentric exercise and is great for conditioning the hands, forearms, and the arm musculature as a whole. This helps athletes with having strong, long-lasting grip that does not easily fatigue during competition. Check out the videos and more at grappito.com. That's GRIPEDO.com.
Tony Reed, Fighters Only Magazine, and Rattling the Cage, joined by former Bellator and UFC Lightweight champ, none other than Eddie Alvarez. How's it going, man?
I'm excellent, man. Just got finished Mark Henry's Dungeon of Greatness in the morning.
Pissing greatness, right?
Yeah.
So, obviously, you made huge waves signing with One Championship in October. Can you just tell, I know you don't give details of the money and things of that nature. You said 8 figures, but you said it's more of a partnership. And can you just walk us through, again, not the financial details, but maybe the details of how they recruited you, maybe some of the details of how you felt you were a partner and why that was the right match for you as a free agent?
So originally, we can't speak to other promotions until you're out of your temporary negotiation period with the UFC.
Yeah.
The UFC was kind enough to speed that up and let us out of that period if it was what we wanted to do. If we wanted to speak with other promotions, they were more than happy to let us do that. So we got out of that, and one championship came right away and let us know that they were interested. So it was pretty quick. Them and amongst a bunch of other promotions as well. I believe there were some in Poland and Russia. What I noticed from the whole the whole scenario, what I noticed was there are so many the high-level promotions all over the world. I didn't know that there was promotions in Poland and Russia that are selling out stadiums. You know what I mean? Yeah,
KSW and some of those, yeah.
Yeah, that show looked incredible. So I didn't know there was such a huge market, that there was a lot of money out there until I became a free agent. So I spoke with the UFC. They were generous in their offer, comparable to other UFC fighters. You know.
Yeah.
So I felt like I would have been one of the higher paid lightweights in the division, comparably to everyone else. I would have been paid like a champion. But I still thought everyone gets paid low. You know, I always thought that UFC and a lot of the fighters in MMA in general overall just was very low pay.
Yeah.
And that someone needed to step up and pay athletes like myself or other names more money. So, you know, in one, we finally got what we deserved, you know. And as far as partnership, so a normal fighter contract, what a fighter looks for is win and show, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All fighters are concerned with is, first of all, what I get paid to show, what I get paid to win, and then everything else is sort of, who cares, you know? And that wasn't what my contract included. A lot more than that. And Joe, I would never take a win and show contract. I think it's a promoter's way of keeping their costs down, and it's not beneficial to fighters at all. It's only beneficial to the promoter to save money.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned offers from one. You said UFC made a generous offer, and you know companies around the world, like you said, you were the hottest free agent on the market. So I'm sure you had various offers. What was the weirdest offer? Did you have anything that was kind of like a little bit off the wall or anything like that?
No, it was really just your typical contracts. You know, the winning shows from everyone. People trying to want to sit down and have dinners and talk about a whole lot of nothing. I really just kind of wanted to get to the meat and potatoes of the contract and see who was serious. And I feel like one not only gave me flat rate, not winning show, but they made the most legitimate offer, and the biggest intrigue besides the money was the fact that this is a promotion that I feel the way they're running it, they're going to become one of the most dominant promotions in the world, and I want to hold the world title. So before I leave this sport, whenever that is, I want to hold every major world title from every major organization, and I feel like these guys are going to be one of them. So I'll have every one by getting one championship belt.
Absolutely. I know in that initial video you posted, you kind of left an empty spot on the shelf, so you're collecting belts, like you said, from every major organization. What would it mean to you? We know you're jumping kind of right into the mix, into the Grand Prix, the Lightweight Grand Prix. Just thoughts on the tournament, potential opponents, and what it would mean to capture that third major MMA title.
I'm clear in my mind. It's a new slate. I know a lot of fighters are saying, they're using them as a promotional, golden boy. They're like, basically, I'm the guy that one wants to use, but I don't look at it that way. I look at it like my past is my past, and whatever I did in the past, that's where it's staying. And I'm joining a new promotion with new opponents and a new territory, and I look at the field, and it's a very tough tournament. I'm not ignorant to the fact that some of the best fighters in the world are completely unfound.
Sure.
Because I'm a testament to that. So I know there's a lot of really good talent in the tournament, and I'm looking forward to competing. I'm looking forward to going in there, competing, being my best self, and showing the world, why I am a champion.
Absolutely, and like we said, you fought for pretty much every major MMA promotion around the world. So far to this point, what makes one special? What makes one stand out from a fighter relation standpoint? If there's things you've seen, what makes one stand out in that sense?
They've came. What they do is they're basically, if you're the who's who of your martial art. If you're the champion if you're a champion anyway, they have like 100 and something champions within the promotion.
Yeah.
So when you watch one, you see super technical striking, super technical ground. Like these guys who are experts in their particular art. So you see a different breed of champions, a different breed of athletes when it comes to martial arts. UFC and Bellator and these other promotions, you see that as well, but in America it's a little watered down because people are training MMA all over. So they're good at everything versus being great at one thing.
Yeah.
So what I see very technical fighting, and I see them bringing the sport back to martial arts where respect and honor for your opponent is held to the highest degree, and it's really about growing individually as a martial artist, and not about shit talking your opponent and causing drama for the fans.
Yeah, no, I talked to Demetrius shortly after the trade went down, and he kind of echoed the same thing. Like, he wanted, he said he has no ill will towards opponents. He's, super respectful, and we've seen that throughout his career, even in the loss to Cejudo. He was clapping and genuinely, pretty happy for him. Like, and that was something that you kind of echoed. The focus on the arts, the focus on the fight itself. That's what drew you to the idea of competing with One. Is that fair to say that was one of the major draws for you and One?
Yeah, I don't mind selling a fight. I get it. Ratings are important. It's a business. I totally get it. I don't mind selling a fight, but it's getting more and more out of hand, and I think I'm just getting a little bit more out of my own character and who I am as a person, and I don't want to. I don't want to go where I feel like it's about to go.
Yeah.
Like, I see more WWF wrestlers coming in.
Yeah.
I see more guys getting title shots who happen to have the most followers on Instagram and Twitter, rather than the guy who actually deserves it. When money is the forefront of everything, you lose the integrity of the actual sport.
Absolutely.
So, where it's going, I don't know if I'm willing to go to certain places where it's going. So I just opt out, and I'm gonna sit tight at One Championship. And honestly, they treated me as a partner, as a fighter and a partner, and valued me and everything I bring to the sport. And I'm gonna do that back.
Yeah, it's kind of like you mentioned there, like it, with the new ownership of the UFC, it kind of is an entertainment entity as much as it is, a fight sports company. And you could, even as like a fan or a media member or viewer, you could kind of see guys. It's like, I don't know if they were outwardly pressured to sell fights, but you could see a lot of guys. It just wasn't their character. They just weren't comfortable doing that. Did you feel like, kind of like you said, almost a level of pressure to try and be like over the top WWE kind of fighter?
You have to.
Yeah.
There's no, like, the promotion and your boss creates the system. He creates the system to make money. And they lay that foundation down, and they say, hey, this is the system. If you follow the system, you'll make money, you'll get the title shots, and you'll get all the rewards and the benefits of following the system. But it comes to a point in a fighter where you either are okay and willing to sell yourself to that system, or you're not.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like a lot of fighters are able to be genuine and get title shots at the same time.
Yeah.
At some point, they're being disingenuous, and at some point they have to sell themselves, for a better word, in order to get that title shot, in order to get that dream that they've been dreaming about their whole life.
Yeah, and like you said, even Chatri, like every time you hear him, you hear and see the passion in his voice, and it is true, they are pushing, martial arts, traditional martial arts, and MMA, of course. One continues to make moves, though. Like we said, trade in for DJ. You were a huge signing early on. We heard Misha's going to be involved on some level. It has to feel good to be a part of a company that is investing in such high level talent, but doing it, quote unquote, the right way too.
They're interested in high-level talent, but they're interested in high-level martial arts and human beings.
Yeah.
What they're really trying to do, and when you look at the trailers One has, is they're taking stories like Mayan and these other guys, guys coming out of Thailand who had tough upbringings and fought through adversity, and they're telling their stories, and they're pushing it to schools in Asia and to the kids, and basically trying to create role models in martial arts to make the world a better place, in essence, not a worse one.
Yeah.
So what they're really selling is just good human beings and doing and becoming a better human being through martial arts.
Yeah.
So they're touching on the good parts of martial arts and everything that creates better humans.
It's interesting you say that, and I don't know if I should say this. I mean, it's just you and I talking here, but I did some writing for one and some interviews and things like that, and even my editor and people like that said, we want to create real-life superheroes, but we want to do it the right way, and I think that's pretty much what they're doing at this point.
Yeah, because you don't... Some of these stories of the fighters and the things they've gone through, if it's told correctly and time is put into it, that you don't need to sell anything else.
Yeah.
You don't need to sell a grudge match or a fake grudge match to people. You don't have to do that. You could just tell the people stories and what they've been through, and that's honestly enough, because them stories aren't told enough.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. And something else, logistically, we know, the majority of one's promotion, home base, the fights themselves are in the Far East. We know you're from, the Philly area, PA. What is, and you fought overseas clearly before, but what is it logistically going to look like for you as far as training, travel, leading up to a fight, camps? I mean, how does that whole ball of wax shake out for you here moving forward?
I'm good, man. I don't buy into too much. I don't think too much about like elevation or where I'm fighting and things. I'm pretty strong-minded, so I've already flew out to Singapore to see how I adjust. I've been to Japan many times. I've fought in Japan many times, so I understand acclimating and things like that, and how long me personally would like to be out there in order to acclimate properly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go out 10 days before the fight. It's going to take 3 or 4 to kind of get my bearings, and then, the next 5 days I should be adjusting properly to be able to compete at a high level. So I don't look too far into it. I think a fight's a fight.
Yeah.
Fly me anywhere in the world, and put me against the best guys, and I'll show up every single time.
Like you have your whole career. We know that's a fact. So something else, it's kind of like the writing's on the wall here, Do you feel like the floodgates are just starting to open as far as elite talent and the right talent heading overseas, heading to one for greener pastures, if you will, the fighters that are worthy of being one, fighters that are just kind of sick and tired of, like you said, just all the kind of the excess, the drama, the politics? Do you feel like it's just kind of like the floodgates are opening? You were one of the first to kind of pioneers to make the jump?
Yeah, I think free agency is undervalued in our sport.
Yeah.
And I think fighters are a little bit nervous about doing that because maybe fighters are insecure, or they're worried that there is no other game outside of the UFC.
Yeah.
And Bellator and these other promotions. But I just think if you're a name and you're a top 3, top 5, even top 10 in the world, there's huge value as a free agent because there aren't many free agents. There just isn't.
Yeah.
And when you get out there and you have a bit of hope and a little bit of faith, you'll be surprised at what you're worth to the world of MMA. So I implore everyone to test free agency, and at worst comes to worst, you get out of your contract, you go back to a promotion that you were already at for either more money or the same amount.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I don't know why so many people are afraid, but I've always been one to be risk adverse and to take some swings even if I got hit. So I'm the same way when it comes to negotiating contracts and dealing with business.
Yeah, well, you're living proof it works, and I think the system, at least by the UFC system, I think it's kind of built for fighters to think that that's the only option. You clearly broke out of that, that glass ceiling or whatever you want to call it, and kind of showed them that that's not the case, that there are other options out there.
Yeah, and you guys heard I was being very clear that in totality this will end up being an 8-figure deal.
Yeah.
And I think people were a little thrown back by that. And initially we're like, whoa, what are you, like, trying to make things up that I may be getting, but it's very cut and clear, and I think a lot of fighters out there need to recognize that and understand that there's bigger games outside, and the game has changed. Everybody's worth a lot more now, and they need to recognize that.
Absolutely. I think it's a good place to end the one conversation. But one thing before we let you go, one of the special sections we do for the magazine is called the 5 Fights of My Life. If there's ever been a guy to ask the best fights of his own career, it's Eddie Alvarez. So not to put you on the spot, but when I ask you that question, the fights of your life, the multiple titles, the Chandler Wars, Aoki, Pitbull, Melendez, Pettis, Ahmad, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. When I ask you the fights of your life, what's the first one that comes to mind, and maybe a quick reason why?
I'd have to say Tatsuya Kawajiri. I fought him in Japan, and a big part was I flew to a foreign country. I fought him in his own country, so the crowd was against me, the refs were against me. I got cut really bad, very fast, and in all, he was just a better fighter. I looked up to him. I seen him fight in the Pride Grand Prix a few years back. So not only did I have to battle him himself, but I had a battle in my own mind that I belonged inside the ring with him. So even all of that and getting beat in the first couple minutes of the fight, I just kept my focus and I battled back, and we ended up getting in a 7.5-minute war. Yeah. And the fight was not a 5-minute fight. The round was 10 minutes long. So I don't know if anybody out there, I don't even think today someone could fathom the idea of fighting a 10-minute round. Yeah. But usually by like the 6-7 minute mark, you really start to hit a wall. Everyone does. And that was when I was able to pull out the knockout and just kind of step on the gas and say, fuck it. And I remember, when the fight was over, just being completely exhausted and smiling at my corner and just being exhilarated and how fun of a moment it was.
That's awesome. So number 2 on the list, not in any particular order, maybe, or maybe it is. What would be number 2 on the list when I ask you about the fights of your life?
Yeah, it'd have to be, second would have to be the Mike Chandler fight, the one, Mike Chandler 1 and 2, because, I think coming off the stool that many times and being in the 4th and 5th round, the championship rounds with another guy for that long of a period of time, there's a time in the 4th and 5th round where it's no longer about the opponent, but you're having negotiations with yourself about your own exhaustion and your own fatigue, and just fighting through them negotiations and winning that negotiation with yourself. It's unforgettable, absolutely unforgettable. You'll never forget it for as long as you live, how you felt in that moment when you felt it and what was being said. So them fights as well, they're something that I'll always be able to go back to.
Yeah, that's really insightful too. The way, like you said, you kind of play that mental, not trading game, but kind of negotiation. Like you said, that's really interesting stuff. So that's the second one. Where are we going for number 3? Or maybe that could be 2 and 3. I guess we'll go number 3. Where are we going for number 3?
So 3, I'd say Joachim Hansen, and that was also in Japan in the Dream Tournament. I knocked him out. He was also just like Kawajiri. I watched him fight in the Dream Grand Prix as a kid and looked up to him, and then I began fighting my heroes, and a couple of seconds into the first round, I knocked him out. He went limp. He popped back up like a puppet, and we got into an absolute 15-minute war, and it was the first standing ovation in Japanese history for two foreign fighters.
That is awesome. So that's 3. Where are we going for the 4th one?
4. Let's go 5th. Let's just call Chandler 2 and 3.
Okay, that works. We can do that.
And then Joachim Hansen, and then 4. Gilbert Melendez.
Okay.
Gilbert Melendez fight in Mexico. And this. Oh wait, we had Justin Gaethje as well. Jesus Christ, I have too many to list.
I know you do.
We're gonna put the Chandler fights are gonna be just 2, and then we had Joachim Hansen. Then we're gonna put me and Justin Gaethje, and I don't need to explain it. Just watch it. And then number 5 is gonna be me and Gilbert Melendez.
Okay.
He broke my orbital and my nose in the first round. I went to blow my nose like an idiot, and I completely went blind in my right eye, I believe, or in my left eye, and I fought two rounds, not knowing where my opponent was and kind of swinging at the air, and just trying to deal with that. I remember going to my corner and needing my corner to keep me in the fight mentally, because I just felt like there was no way that I was able to see or be able to get my hands on my opponent properly to be able to pull out a victory, and I managed to pull through with the help of my corner and everyone involved.
That is awesome. I have to ask you about Gaethje because, like you said, truly, if you want to know, just watch it. But when you're in the middle of that, we know how high of praise Gaethje came to the UFC with. We know what he did, early on, and then to know your career and to be in the middle of that. I mean, like you talk about, things going through your mind. I mean, what was going through your mind? I know it's a loaded question. I mean, a lot, but what was going through your mind as that was playing out?
So I was totally fine in the fight the way it was playing out, only because I watched all Gaethje's fights. I studied him. I rehearsed to be in a terrible situation for 5 5-minute rounds. I rehearsed it in my mind. I rehearsed it in practice.
Wow.
I basically built myself in the training for that camp to become unbreakable. Because I knew that I was going to be pushed to a point to be broken. I knew the type of fighter he is and the pressure that he puts forward. So we prepared for this. So going in, I felt like this is just a normal day. This is what we prepared for, and now we're in it. And point in that fight where we clinch and we're both completely exhausted, and I say to him, as I'm punching him, I'm telling him, eat that. And he's bleeding all over my hands, and I see blood coming down, and he says, I love it.
That's great.
And I said, I love it too. And this is just a small point, maybe a 10-second point into the fight that I thought, man, this is fucking got to be the greatest sport on earth. I mean, we're both completely exhausted, bleeding everywhere, speaking with each other completely, and what a great opponent, what a great partner to kind of put on that show. And the crowd won at the end of the day. Neither one of us lost the fight. The crowd was up off their seats and going crazy.
Absolutely. Only someone as badass and legendary as you could say a fight with Justin Gaethje is just another day at the office.
Yeah.
Eddie Alvarez, man, truly, truly appreciate the time. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure and absolute honor talking to you. I'll keep in touch. When this goes to the magazine, I'll get some more copies out to you. Wishing you all the best. Looking forward to seeing all the amazing things you do in one. And let's catch up again soon, man.
Hell yeah. Thanks, Tony.
You heard our interview with Eddie Alvarez. And as you heard there, he's just kind of done. He's done with the over-the-top, artificial beef that we see in the UFC. He's tired of guys and ladies being pushed to maybe fit a character. He's tired of all that. He wants to fight. And like he said there, like if you tell these fighters real stories, if you do that in the right way in the build up to a fight, that's what you need. You're going to pull for Eddie Alvarez or maybe not like him, whatever it is. You're going to have those same feelings, but they're going to be genuine. They're going to be authentic. And then you're going to watch Eddie do what he does in the cage, which is just whoop up on people. You're going to get the same desired result. I think is kind of what he was getting at. So I like that. And he talked about that. He talked about, I couldn't help but ask him, he was kind of the first to big name signing from the States to go to one. We saw the DJ trade. We heard Misha's name. We heard Sage Northcutt's name being brought up. I asked if he was felt like the floodgates were kind of opening, and he said, yeah, like he said there. And I think it was key that he said for the right people, not just a big name from the UFC, not just a former champ. They want good people. They want, principled men and women. They want the right high-level fighter, not just any high-level fighter. I thought that was really interesting. I like that direction for one. I think they're sticking to that.
Yeah, and Eddie Alvarez is the perfect guy for one. The hard-nosed Philly guy, no nonsense, and can deliver in the cage. I think that's a good recipe. And I think if you look at the people that they brought in, you can say what you want about Sage Northcutt, but I think he's we all know he's a good human being.
All
right.
Examples, he's a good guy.
Right. And I think he's got some talent. but you got Eddie, you got DJ, and even like I said, Misha behind the scenes, and who knows if she'll ever fight again. But you have people they're kind of cut from that same mold.
Yeah.
They're high level fighters, but they're also no nonsense, good people that are all about respect for the sport and respect for the game. So I think it's been proven, like you said, for the right people, it's been proven by the people that you have brought in, and even like I said, Misha behind the scenes, she even fits into that category of just good people, high level fighters, and no nonsense.
Yeah, and Shatri, who's Sityatong, who runs the organization, everyone you talk to that has been around him said just his passion is so true. His personality is just infectious, and he's just a leader that people really want to follow and aspire to be like. So I think they have a big thing going. I think the floodgates are going to open, and I think it will be for the right people. So it'll be really interesting to see. And like Eddie said in the interview, a lot of fighters don't realize their worth at the highest level. I'm not talking some prelim guy who's 2 and 4, but true high level mixed martial artists that are in or around their prime. They think the UFC is the be all end all. And like I said to Eddie, it's kind of like the UFC set it up that way. They want you to think that that's all there is. They don't want you to go to one or KSW or in Poland or wherever where you could really truly make more money, be a big star. They fill 50,000 seat stadiums. It's a worldwide sport, and a lot of people get pigeonholed into thinking the UFC is the be all end all, and they've rigged the system to have you feel that way. And Eddie's broke through that glass ceiling or whatever you want to call it, and I think it's the first drips of a bigger waterfall and a bigger splash. So it'll be interesting to see in the next few years how this plays out.
Yeah, and 3 company champion.
That's champ. Not simultaneously, obviously, but to have held those titles, that's one hell of an accomplishment.
And 3 major companies. I mean, we've got those guys that have won some smaller ones, but the 3 biggest companies probably in the world, you would say, right?
Yeah.
The champ in all 3. I think that's pretty impressive.
Speaking of champ, we talked a lot about champs and stuff. Not Juan Archuleta, who was a 5-time King of Cage champ, which is just ridiculous. That is ridiculous. And I said to him, like, you were a champ of 4 or 5, weight classes? That's insane. He said, I have 5 brothers. I was trying to win a title for each of them. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Just insanity. Anyhow, so we're talking champs, and we were talking a little bit about this before we hit record here with Nick Shue. It seems as if, now, I know I'm a little premature in this, but it seems as if the champ thing, Conor did it. It was like, it was at MSG and over Eddie, actually. Eddie was part of that history. It seemed really big, like a really big deal. I was there in the arena. It seemed like a really, really big deal, which it is. And it was, and it still is. And DC does it. Again, it seems like a really big deal. Like it's, Amanda does it. Still seems like a really big deal. Bader does it. Still a big deal. But at some point, we're seeing, we go from 0 champs to we're already working on almost on our second hand of champs. So at what point, if at all, no disrespect to anyone, of course, but at what point does the champ lose just a touch of the luster or the awe? I mean, if we see it, what if Cejudo goes and does it now? At some point, that feat may not be quite as big as it seems now. Is that fair to say, or do you think no matter what? I mean, clearly you're a champ, that's amazing, but if we have 1 or if we have 36, it's like anything else. It's kind of like
I think it already has to a degree, because again, like you just said, I think the thing that saved all these the current champs.
And the more I hear, the more I want to laugh when I hear.
I know, champ. The current 2 division champions.
Yeah, there you go.
Like the thing that saved all of them was there was some sort of backstory to all the fights.
Yeah.
So obviously Conor doing it first, that sells itself.
Yeah.
You got DC, everything surrounding DC. The possibility of Lesnar coming in. You got John Jones lurking.
And you got Stipe, who seemed unbeatable at the time, and going up.
Yeah, you have
big
all
deal.
these different. Okay, then you got Amanda doing it.
That's
She's
a big
fighting
deal.
Cyborg.
Yeah,
okay,
huge
that's
deal.
a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, you got Bader doing it. He's fighting. He's fighting
big
Fedor.
deal.
Big
yes,
deal.
Absolutely.
But then we got to so you got TJ trying to do it against Cejudo, and everybody kind of went.
And now, so who's going to try and do it? TJ.
Right. But again, there was but there was no backstory for it. Again, other than the champ thing, there was nothing really. Because I mean, TJ Dillashaw, not one of the best fighters in the world, but not a guy whose face you can put on the marquee and people want to watch.
Yeah.
Henry Cejudo, while his pedigree is amazing, another guy. Nobody really the normal everyday guy on the street doesn't know who he is. So it lost its luster because it was a 2-division championship fight. But in my opinion, there was nothing other than that.
Yeah.
So to me, I think
it's like belt chasing.
Right,
Like you said, there's
really
no
is.
backstory. There wasn't
So I think
a build up. There was nothing.
So I think we saw that. Not only does it have to be a two weight class championship fight, but it also has to be a good, interesting fight.
Yeah.
So I think to answer the question, it is yes and no, because we saw one that was not worth its salt. I think even if it was a great fight, nobody really would have cared like they cared about the other ones, just because there was no other backstory. So I think done right, I don't think it's a done deal.
Yeah.
But I think just the allure of a 2-division champion, that's done for.
Yeah. It's almost like in boxing, depending on what weight class you're talking, who the fight is, the backstory, who it involves, the significance of it all. Yeah, it definitely plays a role in it. And other guys are multiple weight champions. It's like.
And here's the other thing. What does it do to the weight classes? I mean, is it good for the sport?
It's a traffic jam. It's a traffic jam because then, how do you can't truly defend belts at 2 weight classes least not in a reasonable time frame to keep both divisions moving. Yeah, it's a traffic jam, really.
Right, and then
until you drop. So eventually, they're going to drop one of the belts, which means you held up the division for that much longer. It's just, then you start talking interim champs, and it's
okay. Let's just play devil's advocate here. Say one of these champions that is holding a belt simultaneously gets hurt. So now you have two divisions held up.
Yeah.
I think it's great, but I think, again, I don't think it's the best thing for the sport. I mean, unless it's a fun fight.
And everyone says they're going to defend both, but you just can't.
No.
At the highest level of mixed martial arts, you can't. It's not possible. So say you win that second title. I say at that point, okay, you're the champion. Bam, put it on the mantle, decide what class you're going to be competing in, and just pick one. You're still the champ, you still accomplished it, but let's keep it moving kind of thing. No disrespect, it's an incredible accomplishment. I'm not trying to take away from anything like that, but at the same time, logistically, you got to kind of keep things moving, and it's not going to happen with one champ at two weight classes. Just
right,
not.
And I think it's more impressive, and TJ would have been the first one to do it, is the champ going down a weight.
Yeah.
I think that to me, that would have been very impressive.
Yeah.
If TJ could have pulled that off.
Especially the cut and what he had to do just to make
because
weight
that
at that
doesn't
class.
happen very often.
Yeah.
We always see the going up.
Yeah.
And I think that again makes it's going to lose its luster, because I think we're going to see this more often with the guy, because we're going to see a couple fighters go down in weight to try to win it, and I don't think they're going to be as successful as the ones that went up. So
and that's a whole different conversation for a different day.
And
too,
here's the other thing that happens. Okay, TJ lost in his bid. What happens if the next 2 or 3 lose?
Yeah.
Is it a big deal anymore?
Yeah.
Or now, does it make the ones that did it more special? Or is it just kind of like, all right, enough?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So
all questions that will be answered at a later date.
Exactly.
Speaking of belts, I promise this will be the last thing we talk about belts. We saw the new design of the UFC belt, which again, people are up in arms. Oh, it's awful. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I think it's okay. It's fine. It's not great. It's not horrible. It's okay. But with the new belt being unveiled, Michael Bisping, former UFC middleweight champ, got in a conversation talking about the belts and why they might have done that. And he said, he was quoted as saying that each of the old model UFC belts are worth $300,000 a piece. That number seemed, that raised eyebrows a little bit. And he said, I guess Bisping is quoted as saying, Rashad Evans, former champion, has a belt at home. Bisping said on his podcast, quote, he was having a conversation with Dana White. Dana White told him the old belts, the ones which we have, are worth $300,000 each. That's what Dana White told Rashad Evans, end quote. So apparently Dana confirmed to Rashad that these belts are $300,000. Maybe, and I guess with the new belts, they aren't going to award literally a new belt each event, or they're going to put a stone on the belt. Cost cutting already, John.
Wait,
they're already trying to save a buck.
Hang on. I'm confused here. So
the new belt style, which they have they literally have a diagram of it as well online, and there's a spot on the belt itself where they will just add a stone.
What does the stone have on it?
Say you defend or whatever, instead of awarding you another $300,000 belt.
Where does the belt go between fights?
I think the champion holds it, but they won't award an entirely new belt. They did that back in the day.
Okay.
So you see pictures with DJ and he literally has 11 belts or whatever it is. It will be one belt with stones added.
Is it not? So it's not like professional wrestling where they come out with the belt. If they win, they leave with the belt. It isn't.
Well, you heard the story when Conor won in New York. He wanted a belt on each shoulder. They didn't they literally went and grabbed one out of the back, so he could perch up on the cage with two belts.
Okay, but that's the UFC's dumb fault.
Oh no, yeah,
right.
I mean,
and think about it. Not only do they give him, so they give him a belt for every time, but then they got to make another one. Okay,
and if it truly is $300,000 a pop,
wow.
Hey, if DJ's sitting on 9, 10, 11 belts at his house. I'm going to text him and let him know.
Yeah.
Or GSP, too. He defended what?
Anderson. Right. These guys had defended it an absurd amount of times.
On the retirement packages, don't even know it.
Who does that?
$300,000?
Okay, that is a terrible business model.
It really is.
It really is.
I don't care how much money you're worth. That is.
Right. I mean, no wonder they had to sell the UFC for a couple $1 billion.
Like, they had to pay these belts off.
They had to pay off their back belt taxes. Yeah. It was they owed the belt makers, $30 million.
Belt makers were knocking at the door of the UFC headquarters.
Wow. Now, and the design is fine. It is. It's fine.
Again, people are going to complain no matter what.
There was a meme online that showed Dana with the belt as like an insignia for a Power Ranger.
Yeah, I did see that.
Which again, it is what it is. Everybody, and that happens with any thing like that. When it changes, people get upset. So, but I have no problem with the new belt design. It wasn't terrible.
Yeah, Bisping also said in his quote for the podcast that, one's in one room, one's gathering dust in another room. He's like, that's $600,000 apparently. He's like, I need to put them in some kind of case or something.
Yeah.
Anyhow, enough belts. Thank you for listening to our belt conversation the last 2 hours. But of course, as per usual, John Vivakis has an interesting topic to kind of round out the show. Johnny V, what do you got today?
Well, the few people that have been around since the dark ages of ESPN radio with us know that every once in a while you and I would see a very interesting sport or an interesting competition that usually
You usually did.
Okay, I usually did. No, you were the one that brought us X-Arm.
Oh yeah.
And what anti-gravity MMA, or what was the one where
we're gonna have to dig. We're gonna have to dig again for some of these. We're gonna have to find some more interesting sports.
Yes. So one of my new favorite shows, and I'm gonna give it a shout out because everyone cares what I watch.
Yeah.
History Channel, Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Night Fight.
There you go. History Channel, 10 p.m.
Right. Night Fight.
Is that tonight?
It is. I have it. It's DVRing right now.
Babe, I'm gonna go home and watch that ish.
Hosted by Jay Riso, Christian of WWE fame.
Okay.
And it is literally exactly what you think it is. It is guys in 80, 90, 100 pounds of legitimate medieval armor swinging weapons at each other's faces.
What could go wrong there?
Nothing at all. Obviously they blunt the instruments and they're not trying to kill each other. They're just trying to
maim,
quote, win the fight. But, it is quite impressive. And it's interesting. Like, it's kind of like MMA. You got your style, you got your Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy and your wrestler and your Muay Thai guy. No, you can be you can fight from the Byzantine era, or you can be a Gaelic, or you can be a Viking, or it's pretty cool. And these guys are legitimately, trying to win a fight wearing armor, swinging axes, swinging swords and maces.
You can be a Byzantine black belt.
You can be a Byzantine black belt.
Sweet.
Yes. So it is an amazing thing to watch.
I'm sure all the guys that are on that are like so over the top into that culture.
Oh my gosh.
They probably believe they're like Mongols.
They go to festivals. They do these things. But it is really cool just to see a guy.
I'm gonna watch it tonight now that you mentioned it.
Right, you have to, and getting knocked down with all that armor on, and you're not only are you trying to get up off your back, but you have to defend.
Weren't there certain like chainmail or certain outfits where you physically couldn't get back up?
Exactly. I think some
kind
of the
like a turtle on your back.
some of the ones like the full suit of armor, like you would see in Scooby-Doo, the ones that where the eyes hide, they hide the eyes.
Yeah.
I think those ones were kind of hard to get up, but some of the chainmail was a little bit better. But they show they kind of lead up to the fight and they talk about the armor and the weapons and that kind of thing. Also, it got me thinking, because you and I had seen this a long time ago. There was it was called M1, and it was literally medieval fighting, the same stuff in a ring. Yeah. And the guys were throwing down with swords and axes. Yeah. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I did a little research, and actually this is a thing. There is like a whole sect of people that train in medieval weaponry. There's actually MMA gyms that will cordon off part of their gym, once or twice a week, and actually let these guys with axes and maces and in full armor throw down in the MMA gym.
Huh.
So I was watching this video. I think it was Vice Sports did it. And you see like a beginner jiu-jitsu class over in the corner, and nobody can function because all you hear is clanging and smashing, and there's literally guys smashing into each other with armor, and the sword gets knocked in your hand.
Guys
so they're
coming through on horseback.
They're
and
throwing
shit.
kicks, they're punching. I mean, they're literally fighting for their lives, and these guys, they research and train in the style of this. So. You know what? I have a newfound respect for, medieval combat because it's a lot. There's a lot going on there. And you know what? Who doesn't want to see a guy get hit in the head with a blunt axe?
I don't know. I'm all for it.
You know what? And if you're sitting at home Wednesday night, you need something to do, Night Fight, History Channel.
I'm going right now. That's it. Thank you guys for listening. Ladies and gents, thank you. Tune in next time. I'm going to watch some night fights.